Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Healing Brain. This is our weekly webinar and podcast at Doman International, where we talk about the brains of children with special needs, and we help answer the biggest and toughest questions that parents have. And so wherever you are in the world right now, whether you're listening to this on StreamYard or Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, welcome. And you can type your questions into the comments box, and we will answer them throughout this podcast. My name is Spencer Doman. I'm the director of Doman International. I've been working with families of children with special needs for over 20 years. And at Doman International, what we do is we empower families of children with special needs with holistic solutions for their children. And specifically, we work with warrior moms and dads who want to know exactly what they can do to help their children reach their fullest potential in life. I am joined by my colleague, Colleen Hudson, who's the Director of Representatives at Doman International. She is the first person that parents talk to at our organization. She helps onboard families, ask the questions that they're scared to ask, and helps them get started with this exciting new journey that they begin when they come to Doman International. So today's topic is a really good one. How do you improve a child with special needs focus and concentration? And so I've actually brought 5 things that you can do each day that will help your child's focus and concentration, whether your child's been diagnosed with autism, ADHD, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, developmental delay, speech delay, or any other special need. These are going to be recommendations that are going to be helpful for you. So let's get started with number 1. So number 1 is nutrition and gut health. So every family that comes onto the Doman International program is given a nutrition program by one of our specialized nutritionists. And so what we do with each child is, first of all, we have the parents do certain kinds of lab work, usually blood tests and urine tests, to see how the child's physiology is and to see how their gut is functioning. When we do that, along with looking at how the child is doing just on a daily basis functionally, does this child have good energy? Do they have strong immunity, or are they getting ill a lot of the time? Is this child hyperactive, or is this child lack energy? Right? These are the kinds of questions that our nutritionists need answers to develop the best possible nutrition plan for the child. And then at that point, once we have the developmental history of the child, which is the first thing we do when a family comes for an appointment, and we have our lab tests, our nutritionists are ready to get down to work and create a customized nutrition plan for that family. And so what they generally do is they say to families, okay, and of course I'm simplifying here, but they say to the families, listen, here are the foods we need to avoid. Here are the foods we need to add in order to give the child better variety and balance in their diet. And here are the supplements or vitamins we need to begin now with your child to start addressing some of these underlying issues. And I mentioned this because today we're talking about focus and concentration. Very often, when we want to improve a child's focus and concentration, supplements are going to be a part of that, right? Whether it's supplying the child with certain vitamins and minerals that they lack in their lab work, right? Very often we have children who are low in vitamin B or low in vitamin D or low in vitamin C. Okay, those children need to be supplemented. Or sometimes we will have children who, they have gut dysbiosis, meaning they've got not enough good bacteria and flora in their gut, and they have too much of the bad gut bacteria and flora. And because of the gut-brain connection, that dysbiosis in the gut leads to often erratic behavior, problems with energy, poor focus and concentration, which is why it's so relevant to our conversation today. So for some children, that means giving them a probiotic supplement. And what we've learned over time is not all children need the same probiotic supplement, right? Some children that can be greatly benefited by a certain kind of probiotic, other children will have a negative effect, when given that probiotic. And so our nutritionists have figured this out over time, what children are benefited by certain probiotics more than others. So we start to remove problematic foods. So this is almost always foods that have sugar or sugar substitutes that are sometimes just as problematic as sugar itself. Very often we're looking at reducing or eliminating foods, of course, processed foods, food dyes. These things are really problematic for children's attention and behavior. I remember with my own nephew who's neurotypical, his mom gave him a snack once, which were like fruit gummies, and his behavior just became erratic. And she realized it was the blue food coloring that was in the food. And once she took that out, he was fine. So I do want to say everything I say today isn't just for children with special needs. It's also for neurotypical kids, right? It's not that focus and concentration is not something which is just either good or bad. There's a whole spectrum there. And all of us know this about ourselves, right? Some days we may not sleep well, and we notice our concentration isn't as good the day after, or we don't eat well, or we're not engaging in physical activity. So all of us can get better or worse in this area, but children are especially sensitive to this. And I don't have a separate point here about sleep, but it is very much connected with nutrition and physiology. And so in many ways, I almost didn't put sleep as one of the points because I considered it so obvious, but I shouldn't have. I was just speaking to a mom last week, and she was saying to me, my child's concentration is really deteriorated. And I said, how much is your child sleeping? And she said, oh, he's sleeping a full night. And I said, oh, how much? And she said 8 hours. And I said, for your child's age, your child should be sleeping 10 to 12 hours a night. So mom thought the child was sleeping enough because she's heard 1,000 times in media or from doctors that 8 hours is enough sleep, when actually most children need 10 to 12 hours of sleep a night. So that child was actually chronically sleep deprived, and mom had started to notice the repercussions in his concentration, and also his behavior with others was becoming erratic, which is a common thing to happen with children when they're sleep deprived. So looking at nutrition, gut health, and physiology is really step number one for us. And very often we will almost immediately, within a couple of months, see an improvement in a child's focus, concentration, behavior when we begin a nutrition program looking at diet and supplements. Okay, I see Colleen is joining me. Hi, Colleen.
Hi.
Colleen, I introduced you before. I said you were the first person that parents speak to when they come to Doman International, and you're there to answer all of their questions, even the ones they're scared to ask about the Doman Method.
Yeah. No question is too odd or sensitive. I hope the families always feel really comfortable speaking with me because, I know there are a lot of doubts and confusion and maybe things they've heard from other people. And, there's nothing, I really don't get offended either. So.
All right. Well, now we're talking about what are 5 things you can do to improve your child's focus and concentration. We started with nutrition and gut health. Mm-hmm. And I see we have a question on Instagram that kind of leads me to number 2. Miriam is saying, our son has trisomy 21 and he's 5 years old and he's gaining weight very quickly. What do you recommend? And so what we would do, Miriam, when a child comes for the first appointment, usually our nutritionist will give parents a calorie goal, right, to reach, to help a child return to a normal weight. And I do want to say here, keep in mind that we have many children who join our program who are overweight, but we also have just as many children joining our program who are underweight. So we have children on both ends of that spectrum. And so what the nutritionists do is they say, okay, let's try to reach this healthy calorie goal, which of course is more than enough to give the child the energy that they need, especially with our program that's going to include physical challenge, right, which burns calories. But also, I do want to say, Miriam, it's not just about how many calories a child is getting. It's also about the quality of food that they're getting as well. Are they getting a large variety of foods that include, whole foods like healthy protein sources, vegetables, and for some children, fruits as well? Are they getting all of that? Or are they getting a lot of processed foods? Are they having a diet which is very high, for example, in carbohydrates that could lead to weight gain? So it does depend on the child, but obviously nutrition is going to be a core focus for a child who needs to lose weight. Now that leads me to the second point, which is children also need a regular physical program. If we take the example of children with Down syndrome that Miriam is asking about, I would say that when we look at a group of children with Down syndrome, it is very rare when they come to us for the first time that those children are engaging in regular physical activity. Now, when we think of physical activity, most of us think about physical activity for fat loss, right? Trying to stay in shape, trying to stay fit. But there are certain physical activities that are both very good for the body, but also very good for the brain. Okay. And that shouldn't be surprising that what's healthy for the body is healthy for the brain. And so what we do with children is different physical programs that involve the two hemispheres, the two sides of the brain, to work together and coordinate. But also we want to do physical activity that induces deep breathing that gets a child breathing deeply, because that's going to increase oxygen delivery to the brain. Oxygen is very, very important for proper brain function. So for example, for many children, we're going to, whatever their highest physical activity is, whatever's the highest or latest physical milestone that they've achieved, we're going to want to do that every day. So if you have a child who can walk but cannot run, you want to have them walk every single day. Okay. Usually we're doing maybe starting with 15 minutes of walking in a day and then building up to 30 minutes. Okay. If you have a child who can run, you should do running with your child each day. Right. And what we do with those children is we do intervals where we might walk for 100 meters or yards and run for 100 meters or yards. If you have a child who cannot yet walk, for example, they creep on their hands and knees or crawl on their belly, you want to do whatever that activity is, you want to do a lot of it, because the more they do of that activity, the sooner they will walk. So very important to have that child do a regular physical program to advance their mobility. When we do that, we almost always see an improvement in focus and concentration with children. There's an overwhelming amount of research that shows that when children engage in regular aerobic activity, like going out for running, right, or playing some kind of sport, that their focus improves in the classroom. They tend to get better test scores. I'm not saying that this is all about getting better test scores, but it's an illustration. It's an example of how physical activity is so important for cognition and learning. And so we are, with every child on the Doman Method, we're doing a regular physical program with them, and we're going to see improved behavior and focus. Now, along with that, I see we've gotten a question from Anne, who's asking, how do you get a child to run who's capable of running but doesn't want to? Really good question. It's a common issue that parents are going to face. And I would say this is a common issue regardless. Some parents might say, my child can't run yet. They can walk, but they don't want to. Okay, so a couple of thoughts. So first of all, many of the other things we're going to talk about today are going to help one another. So for example, if we look at nutrition and gut health, right? If we give a child a better diet and the supplements that they need based on their lab work, they're going to have more energy and they're going to be more willing to do certain things that they're not willing to do now. So that's the first thing I'll say. The second thing that I'll say is it's really important with children to start them on a gradient. The most common mistake adults make when they're trying to introduce a new activity to a child is they try to do too much. So they say, all right, let's go out and run. Let's run, 4 times around this track, a mile. And the child starts out like they run 100 yards, they're happy. And then they get kind of tired and parent says, come on, let's keep going. And the child starts to go, no, I don't want to do this. And it ends with a fight. And then when the parent comes out to the track the next time, the child now has a bad feeling associated with it. They don't want to do it anymore, right? So the parent bit off more than they could chew. So it's always important. You always want to stop an activity before your child wants to stop. So when you do your first walk and run with your child, first of all, as I said before, I would just start with little running bursts where it's like, okay, we're going to run 10 yards and then we're going to slow down to a walk, right? Where you say, oh, let's run. And your child runs. And then you say, okay, stop. We've done our 10 yards. And maybe your child may go, no, I want to keep going. And you go, no, we're going to walk for a while, right? Because you'd rather them be urging you to do it rather than the other way around. So you're kind of pulling the reins back a little bit. That's really, really helpful. And then you slowly build up the gradient. I would say probably 80-90% of the time, the biggest mistake parents make with a physical program is building up too much. Very good questions. Okay, so along with nutrition and regular physical activity, the third thing that we have for how to improve your child's focus and concentration are different treatments for stimulating the vagus nerve. So vagus nerve stimulation is something that really has been added into the Doman method only in the last 5 years. It's because of the work of a researcher in the US named Stephen Porges, who discovered that the function of our inner ear muscles are also connected to our vagus nerve. The vagus nerve controls what's called the fight or flight response. Fight or flight meaning it's our fear response to things that scare us, right? And the vagus nerve is very important. It protects us, right? If you need to cross Times Square and there are cars everywhere, you need your vagus nerve to say to yourself, hey, I need to watch out for all these cars so I don't get killed, right? Vagus nerve is very important. But if the vagus nerve is dysregulated, which it often is with children with neurodevelopmental delays, they get anxious and fearful even when it's not necessary, right? So you say to your child, hey, let's do this new activity. And they go, no, right? Because that's a vagus nerve, their vagus nerve is dysregulated. It's telling them that's a threat. That thing's a threat, right? Or you say to your child, oh, let's go get your haircut. No, sometimes they'll run away. Sometimes they might get aggressive. They have a fight or flight response when it's really just not necessary. And so the problem is if your vagus nerve is dysregulated, what happens is the vagus nerve tells our bodies to constantly be in movement. And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? If there's a lion who walks into my room right now, my vagus nerve should tell me to get away, right? And so the vagus nerve is constantly telling us when we're worried to move. And movement is one of the best ways to regulate vagus nerve, by the way. And so that going back to my last point about physical activity is great for regulating the vagus nerve, right? That's why it's very good if people are dealing with mental health issues to engage in physical activity because it helps regulate the vagus nerve. It makes them feel better. But going back to what we're doing at Doman International, what we do is we have a program called the Safe and Sound Protocol, which is an auditory program, a music program that children listen to, and it stimulates the vagus nerve through the auditory muscles. And when we do that, we often see children start to settle. They're less anxious and hyperactive, and that helps with focus and concentration. So when we couple that with a nutrition program and physical activity, now we're starting to get a compounding effect, right? Where these different activities are helping the child and you really start to see major results. I do want to say that we don't start all of these things at exactly the same time with a child. So each of these things, whether it's nutrition, physical activity, vagus nerve stimulation, we start all of these things at a gradient very carefully, and we'll usually start them at different, on different months, for example, just to make sure that we're doing this safely. We're adding one new variable at a time. All right, we've got some questions here from Anya, who's asking about how could an auditory treatment like the Safe and Sound Protocol be done when a child is hard of hearing? That is a great question. And then she's asking, is there an alternative way to stimulate auditory treatment for deaf and hard of hearing kids? The answer is yes. So if we have a child who comes in to the Doman International Clinic who is deaf or who is hard of hearing, we begin actually with more foundational auditory stimulation than the Safe and Sound Protocol. To your point, Anya, it would not be right to start the safe and sound protocol with a deaf child because they're not ready for it yet. They're not going to hear it. So what we do with a deaf child or a child who might be hearing, let's say, impaired, is we do low-level foundational auditory stimulation. For example, the most basic hearing ability all of us have is something called a startle reflex, right? A startle reflex is something that is stimulated with two wooden blocks, for example, or a pot and a pan. You hit it together, bang, right? And it's called the startle reflex because the person startles with their body. So very often children who are deaf or hard of hearing because of a neurodevelopmental issue don't even have a startle reflex. So we will stimulate that startle reflex 5 times a day, 10 times a day, 15, 20 times in a day. And what we start to see over time is that child starts to become more reactive to sounds because the auditory pathway is an incoming pathway into the brain. It's like a highway that goes into the brain. And so as we do more intense stimulation, it sends those signals to the brain, and the brain connections, right, between brain cells and neurons starts to improve. So we do auditory stimulation with these children with frequency, meaning many times in a day, with intensity, meaning strong, and with duration, meaning we do it for quite some time until that child hears better and better. And we do have other kinds of stimulation where we'll play, for example, specific meaningful sounds for the child, like environmental sounds, but we play it usually through an auditory speaker, right? A like loudspeaker to make it easier for the child to hear. And then over time, as the child starts to hear better, we'll start to reduce that volume, and we start to see the child improving in their ability to hear. So very good question, Anya. We start with the auditory stimulation first, and then we start, and then later on, we might do the safe and sound protocol. Colleen, anything you want to add to what I've been saying so far?
I do want to say to parents, when families are tuning into this session, often they have very specific questions about something that is really bugging them about their kid, they're concerned for, which is great. But I think that keeping in mind the fact that all of these particular answers that Spencer gives are valid, but everything that we do is within a larger context. Like every kid that we work with, every family we work with, we're targeting the areas that you're concerned about, but we have that within a framework of this holistic approach. So, so even for parents who are like, oh, I'm going to try that thing, if you're trying the thing that Spencer recommends, but you're not working with us and you don't have a holistic program and you're not seeing the results that you think you should, please don't assume, oh, my kid just isn't right for this. It's probably something else that we need to do in tandem.
Right. And I will say that, even if we just take the example of a child who's deaf or hard of hearing, there are non-auditory treatments that are helpful for that as well. Like, just to give you an idea, the reason why a child is not good at hearing and processing sounds is because there's a low area of the brain called the midbrain, which isn't functioning normally. That's the part of the brain that is responsible for processing sound. Now, that area of the brain is also responsible for cross-pattern movement, right? So for example, if I'm crossing the midline of my body by tapping my knees or tapping my shoulders, or if I get down on the ground and I commando crawl on the ground where I'm using the right side of my body with the left side of my body in a coordinated way, that also stimulates the midbrain. So sometimes parents are surprised to hear that you don't just need to do auditory stimulation. You need to do certain physical activities, certain respiratory activities, certain nutritional programs might also be helpful as well. Great point. And that does give me an opportunity to talk for a second about our books. So for those of you who haven't heard about our books, I wrote the book, The Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness, with my dad, Douglas. It's available on Amazon. It's available as a hard copy, ebook, and audiobook too. So The Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness. That's basically the first book that I recommend for any parent, unless if they have a child with an autism diagnosis or an ADD diagnosis, I recommend the book Answering Autism, the Doman Method Plan for Autism, ADD, and Neurodevelopmental Delays. Again, I wrote this with my dad, Douglas. All right. Perfect. And we did actually answer that question from Instagram, Les. I just wanted to let you know that. We do have another question here from Instagram about what do you think, it's by Waleed, what do you think about red light therapy and photobiomodulation? Okay, so in both cases, I actually have a similar reply, both for red light therapy and photobiomodulation, which is I've heard the theoretical arguments behind them, and they make sense to me. Okay, so even one of my medical colleagues has talked to me about photobiomodulation and that it might be a promising treatment in the future. But that being said, here I'll share this question here. There we go. Yeah. That all of that being said, I have not seen enough practical evidence that it actually gets big time results with children. I haven't seen it greatly improve focus and concentration. That's our topic for today, but also other areas of development. So I have heard some anecdotal stories of like it has been helpful, but I have spoken to parents who have used it, and it just hasn't given us enough of a wow factor yet for us to include it in the program. We've always said that we're very selfish at Doman International. If something works and gets results, we'll use it. But I just realized now that I've never used that expression for the first time. Something really needs to have a wow factor for us to start using it. Because there are 1,000 things out there that could be helpful potentially. But the question is it going to help the vast majority of children make major wins? And that's what we're including. And by the way, some things are very healthy lifestyle habits. Like if someone said, hey, is going into a red light sauna a healthy thing to do? Absolutely. I wish I had a red light sauna, So absolutely, it's a healthy lifestyle habit. Is it going to produce enough neuroplasticity to get a child to talk more or walk better or get them to read? That I'm skeptical of still. I just need to see more evidence.
Oh, Anne has personal experience.
Oh, thank you, Anne. I appreciate that. So Anne says, regarding photobiomodulation, our family has spent thousands of dollars on high quality lasers and they didn't help. Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that, Anne, but I really appreciate you sharing that info with us. And one of the most underrated things about our work is we constantly get feedback from our parents. It's like a real life. What's the phrase I'm looking for, Colleen? When like a focus group.
Yes.
Focus group. You're getting constant feedback, and that's really helpful for us in making decisions of how to pursue, what to pursue. Like the Safe and Sound protocol that I just talked about, that came from moms. Moms told me, look into this thing. It helped our child. And the first mom told me about it and I made a mental note. Oh, that's nice, But then when the second mom came and said, Spencer, you got to look into this thing. I went, it's helped my child greatly. My child went from not speaking to talking. Then it got my attention. And now we've used it with hundreds and hundreds of children. So we do get feedback from our parents, which is really, really helpful. And, in the end, we need to trust our parents, right? And that's not to say some children might benefit from a certain treatment and other kids may not. Okay, that happens all the time. Not every child is going to respond the same way, but you do have to listen to parents. It's one of the fundamentals of our program. I hear from parents all the time. They will go to their doctors and they'll say, hey, we started the Doman Method and our child started to do all these new things. And the doctor will, it depends on the doctor. Some doctors will just shrug them off like, yeah, whatever. So there you have a physician who doesn't really care about what his patients are saying. Or sometimes you'll have very, better natured doctors, but this still really annoys me. They'll say, okay, yeah, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. And of course, that's better than saying you're wrong. But on the other hand, it's like, maybe you want to learn a little bit more about it, crack open a book. It's easy to learn more about this stuff. So, when a parent comes to me and says, I did this with my child and my child changed in these ways, the only correct answer to that is tell me more. It's anything else is a lack of professional due diligence.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Now, for everyone who's joining us late, we're talking about 5 things that you can do to improve your child's focus and concentration. I am now on number 4. This is something that we've started to do more recently with children, and that is improve macular vision by showing videos in a dark room. So we have 2 visual fields, macular vision and peripheral vision. So if you can imagine for a second, when we're looking at something, we kind of have a rectangle. Think like a camera focus rectangle where we are focusing our vision. That's our macular vision. Everything else around that is our peripheral vision. Macular vision is very important, for example, for learning. I need to use macular vision when I'm reading or when I'm writing, or if I'm engaging socially with others, I need to make eye contact. So it's very important for social connection. Macular vision is how we learn and interact with the world. Peripheral vision is everything on the outside. Peripheral vision is important for safety, right? If I'm stepping out into the street and a car's coming, the peripheral vision will save my life. Now, peripheral vision is not clear, right? If you look, you're watching this video right now, you can probably see Colleen and I clearly, but if you have peripheral vision, you'll see it's kind of blurry, right? It's not super clear. And that's there for safety, so I don't get hit in the head by a ball, right? I see it coming. So the problem is so many children with neurodevelopmental issues spend their whole lives in the periphery. They'll look everywhere except for what you're trying to get their attention on. And so their macular vision is not very well developed. And so now I do want to say this activity of improving macular vision without doing nutrition, without doing physical program, without addressing the vagus nerve, would it get some gains? Yes, but it's really, like I said, it's a compounding effect between all of these different items. Now, what we will do is once we've started all these other programs, we will start to bring these children with poor macular vision, poor visual focus. We'll bring them into a dark room. So imagine you're in a room completely black and all there is to watch is a screen. Okay. And we'll put a video on that they like, a music video, it could be a movie that they enjoy watching, animal documentary. Of course, we don't want it to be something junk, right? We want it to be something they can enjoy and learn from. But because there's complete darkness in the rest of the room, the child, sometimes for the first time in their lives, will visually focus on that screen. And parents will say, wow, I've never seen him watch a video for 30 minutes straight or something like that. Now, some parents will say at this point, but wait, aren't screens bad for children? And so we do have to be careful. I wouldn't do this with a baby, for example. We wouldn't do this with a child under 2 years of age because there's so many other things we can do with that child for macular vision. We also are not using a phone. We're not using some kind of device they're holding in their hands. We're putting this on a larger screen further away from them. But what we have found is that this improves visual focus and that children, as they do this, improve in their ability to read, focus for longer periods when they're being taught, make better eye contact, and so on. All right. Very good. Oh, we're getting all kinds of nice comments. Thank you, Monica. I appreciate it. All right. And then last but not least, for number 5, we will often begin visual tracking exercises with children. So visual tracking exercises, meaning we will take objects, little toys, things that a child will like and enjoy. And what we'll have the child do is visually focus on a small point. Okay, so here I've got a little toy with a cute little face. So what we would have the child do is do visual tracking, where we move this object in space and we have the child follow it with their eyes. Okay. Now, one important thing, many children, because they lack visual convergence, the ability to converge their vision, they will have this tendency to move their head with the object. And they're essentially compensating for their vision. We don't want that. We want the child to keep their head still as they track that object, so that we're improving the connection between the brain and the eye muscles. So the most simple activities you can do are side to side, up and down, and in and out. Now, we've probably developed more than 10 different visual tracking exercises. So as children get better and better, we start to unlock more sophisticated exercises that are more challenging. But if I was starting with a young child, a new child to this, I would start with side to side, up and down, and in and out. And then as they get better, then I would start to add newer, more challenging exercises. You always have to keep adding newer challenging exercises for kids, because at a certain point, if it gets too easy, we're not challenging the brain, and that means the brain isn't growing. So those were 5 things that anyone could do at home to help a child with their visual focus and concentration. So we said, number 1, nutrition and gut health. And I also said good sleep is very important. Number 2, we said a really good physical program. Number 3, we said stimulate the vagus nerve through auditory programs. Number 4, watching videos in a dark room. Number 5, visual tracking exercises. All right, I think we have some time now to go to questions. We've got a comment here from Waleed, who on Instagram, who says, you guys have the best program, period. So many of these new therapies and intensives have elements of the Doman method. Yeah, I think you're right. I'm seeing more and more things. I don't always agree with how the programs are implemented. Sometimes I'll see programs being done with a bizarre frequency or duration, or sometimes I'll see, like I recently saw a video of a child doing a vision therapy, and they were using our black and white checkerboard, which has been used in the Doman method for 60, 70 years for visual stimulation. But they were doing it for a child who didn't need it, and it was like, you guys are wasting time, because they saw that this was part of the Doman method, but they didn't understand why you do it. And so because that they were doing it with a child who didn't need it. So that's an important thing to understand.
That's something I tell a lot of parents when I speak with them, is that because we begin all of our appointments with a comprehensive functional evaluation, we get right from the beginning, like, where is your kid and what do they need? We're not going to waste their time with any activity that isn't going to benefit what their brain needs. We're just going to go cut to the chase, Right. But we can also identify exactly what's needed. So It's both things. We don't waste time doing stuff that they already grew out of, but we also really are honing in on what are the things that are going to address their challenges in the most efficient way.
Yeah, and I would encourage parents, whenever you're considering any kind, even if it's not Doman International, if you're considering a new therapist or therapy, you should always ask people when they say, okay, we're going to do this activity, you should say, okay, how is that going to help the brain? And what parts of the brain is it going to help? And if they can't give you an answer to that question, if they can't give you like a coherent answer, or about how it directly affects the brain and what areas of the brain, that's a warning sign, because it means they don't truly understand why they're doing it. And that could mean either they're doing something, but because they don't know why they're doing it, it means they don't know how to optimize what they're doing. That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is they're just doing something and they don't know why they're doing it.
Yeah.
I will say that at least in the field of education, almost nothing is understood about brain development. When I did my master's degree in early childhood education, in my first course, they taught us, the brain during the first 6 years is growing faster than at any other time in your life. It's the most important years of your life. Absolutely true. And then they spent almost the next 2 years teaching us things that didn't actually majorly impact brain growth and development, And so sometimes they understand the science, but they don't really know what to do about it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see that we've got a comment here on Instagram from Lil Docha, who says, I love this. I did this with my newborn with black and white cards, the tracking activities. Absolutely. Yeah. For a child who's just developing vision, using something like a picture, which is bigger than what I was talking about to help them track, is a great idea. By the way, for anyone who is interested in watching the Doman Method teaching programs in action, I do recommend you find Lil Docha on Instagram or TikTok and watch their videos, because the mom does a great job of showing what the program looks like in action, especially with a very young child. All right. Well, whether you're joining right now on Facebook, Instagram, or here on StreamYard, you can ask any questions. We've got maybe 10 minutes left. So go ahead and post your questions and we will answer them in order.
I do have one pre-submitted question.
Go ahead.
This is from Wendy. Wendy says, I would like help with teaching my 12-year-old math and spelling and helping her to retain this information. She has epilepsy, and we control this through diet and watching for all of her triggers. She reads very well now, but her math and spelling suffer. I also have a 9-year-old with Down syndrome. I just purchased the whole child reading program, and I'm very excited that I will be able to teach her how to read. Thank you for all your time and help.
Got it. And it says there the whole child reading program?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, and when the mom's name is Wendy, correct?
Wendy.
Wendy. Right. Okay. So Wendy, a couple of things. I want to make sure that you got the Doman Learning Reading Program, which is, the reading program that was developed by my family. So reach out to Colleen. Colleen, I'm going to throw your contact information up on the screen.
Definitely.
Do you know if you've spoken to Wendy before?
I don't believe that I have. Okay. I do have her email address. So I'm going to be sending her this recording. Hi, Wendy. Okay. And I will check my database and see if I have your phone number, because I'll call you. There is a something called the Whole Child Reading Program, which is not us.
It's not us. Okay. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
And Wendy, even if, I even at Doman, I'm not sure how much it cost you the whole child reading program, but I'm sure Doman Learning, especially if you were looking for a Doman program and you found the wrong thing, Doman Learning probably could help you with a coupon code or something so you can get the real thing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff out there, and I can't speak to how good it is or if it's like our program. But okay, putting all that aside, talking about spelling and math, great questions. If I, maybe if I could take 1 second right now, I can pull up just a little visual to talk about spelling. Mm-hmm. So, generally, the first thing I'll say, Wendy, is if a child isn't reading well, teaching them spelling becomes very difficult because, if a child reads very slowly or phonetically, they aren't able to look at words and read them in their entirety. It's very hard for them to spell because they cannot visualize the entire word, right? It's like if I ask you right now, visualize the word elephant, you can actually visualize the entire word ELEPHANT in your mind. That really helps with spelling. If you cannot visualize that entire word, good luck. Okay. So, and as we also know, English specifically is not a very phonetic language, right? I always like to use the example of the word of the letters GH, in the word tough, GH makes an F sound. In the word ghost, GH makes a G sound. And in the word though, GH is silent, right? So, teaching phonetics in English is very, very problematic. And for a child with a speech problem, which both of your children likely have some kind of speech delay based on the diagnoses, it makes reading very, very tough. So along with the Doman reading program, there are spelling exercises that you can do. And so this might be a good time for me just to show a little visual of this. Give me 1 second. I really like to do spelling activities. Colleen, I'm going to pull up a slideshow and hopefully it works. Let's see how it goes. Okay. Colleen, can you see the word mommy and the letters underneath? Yeah. So what I like to do is
Spencer, take down the banner with my information for the moment, though, so we can see the letters beneath.
Okay, give me 1 second. It's going to take a moment. Thank you. Now we've got.
Okay. There we go.
All right, let's go back to this. All right. So as you probably know at this point, Wendy, the Doman Method reading program has whole words that we're teaching the child. And but what we can do in addition to showing those words with a lot of frequency, right? Showing these words maybe 3 times a day for 5 to 7 days, is we can also start to do spelling activities with the child where we show them the word that they're learning how to read, and we have them start to construct the word using letter tiles, right? So you put that word mommy down for the child, and you only take the letters for that word. Don't give them all 26 letters in the alphabet, because for many children that becomes visually overwhelming. They have so many letters, they don't know how to find the ones that they need. And you just have them from left to right create that word using those letters. It's essential to have your child always go left to right. Some children will naturally kind of put the word together like a puzzle. So they'll start with the O, and then they'll put the Y, and then they'll fill in the M's. And the problem with that is that's not how we all write and type. We always go left to right. And so we have to, and by the way, directional consistency, very difficult for children with neurodevelopmental issues. So very good. It's very important to always have them go left to right with these activities to help give them that pattern and that repetition of how we type and write words. So the first step in helping the spelling is to have your child copy the word. So you show the word and then they put the letters into order. And you do that with repetition until you start to see your child is getting really good at this. You want them to almost get to the point where it's like mommy, M-O-M-M-Y, like it's too easy for them. And then at that point, you say to the child, okay, now I'm just going to give you the letters. Do it from memory. Right? The child has copied the word many times with the word in front of them. And now the child starts to put the word together on their own. Now, here's one of the most important things. If your child makes a mistake, okay, if they make a mistake, don't correct them. Let your child finish the word, okay? So here you can see the child made a mistake. They put the Y before the M's, right? Many parents want to jump in and say, no, don't do that. Okay, just hold off on that. Once they've finished the word, you show them the correct word and you have them correct their own mistakes. So then the child goes, oh, okay, I put the M's over here, I put the Y here, and now they've done it correctly. You always let a child correct their own mistakes because they learn from their mistakes, first of all. And second of all, they don't feel self-conscious like they're being corrected. All of us like to discover our own mistakes and correct ourselves, but we don't often like it when other people correct us. So for children, when they discover their own mistakes, they tend to enjoy it a lot more. So Wendy, what I would recommend for you, because you mentioned a lot of important things in your message. You talked about epilepsy, you talked about math challenges, writing issues. So first of all, I definitely recommend that you jump on a call with Colleen just to learn a bit more about our program. So I'm putting Colleen's email address, info@domaninternational.org, and her phone number as well. Along with talking to Colleen, I do think the book, The Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness, would also be helpful for you to get a bit more of a background for both of your children. It would be wonderful. But yeah, Colleen can talk to you about what we do, how we help families on our program. Colleen, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, and just how to integrate everything. Sometimes parents come to me saying, well, I have more than one child who has challenges and I don't even know where to start because they're different, completely different. But we do work with families who have more than one kid with very different challenges, and we can help you to kind of put all that together in a way that's a little bit more cohesive. I think sometimes parents think, this program sounds great, but I can't do a full program for one kid and then a full program for the other kid. I'm one person, I have one day at a time. But we help families to see where, you can, you do live as one family, you're trying to combine things. It's not like you feed them at separate times or, sequester things. So it's got to be practical too, but we can help with that for sure.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I'll leave Colleen's contact information up on the screen. If we have maybe 2 minutes left, so go ahead if you have any questions. If you're on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, this is your last chance to get your question answered today. I do see 13 Star Power on Instagram said, "Oh, if you can't visualize the word." Yes. So realizing that you can't really spell if you can't visualize the word. Absolutely right. Now, while I'm waiting to see if we have a last question, I do want to say that next week, which is June 15th, the topic of the week is called Involve the Siblings, Turn the Doman Method into a Family Project. So we're going to talk about what you can do to involve your child's neurotypical brothers and sisters in your child with special needs daily program, and how not only will that benefit your child with special needs, but also benefit the neurotypical brothers and sisters who often actually gain even more benefits from being involved in the lives of their special needs brothers and sisters. So I'm very excited to talk about that. Let me see if we have any final questions. I do not see any. And I want to say next week we're talking about involving siblings. The following week on June 22nd, we're having an episode called A Warrior Mom, an interview with Annabella. A mom named Annabella is going to be joining me to talk about her experience with her daughter, Vanessa. So it's going to be great to have a mom on the program just to talk about her experience and the gains she's seen with her daughter. All right, Colleen, I'll let you, I don't see any other questions. Any final words? Please, folks, don't ever hesitate to, even if you're looking at it and saying, hey, I'm not sure when we might ever be able to work with Doman International, or, it's going to be a few months before we could even think about an appointment. We're still here to start the conversation. So if you have any questions, don't wait until what you think is like the perfect time, because the perfect time is really now. There's a lot that we can do in the interim. And even if it's just which books should I be reading first or things like that, that's what we have this session for. But just don't hesitate to get in touch with me. Yeah, the summer is often a really great time to start the program. Sometimes for obvious reasons, children might be home from school. You might have more time with your kids. So it can be a very good time to get started. But also I have to say September, October, November are the busiest months of our schedule. Usually I think because first of all, we have many trips that our team books to different parts of the world, but also because I think it's the new school year. A lot of parents kind of realize it in those moments, like, okay, we've got to help our child make a developmental jump to get them ready. So I would say to parents, this is a really good time to get started with the program.
Yeah, and we do have openings for the end of June, beginning of July. End of July, our team is traveling. August, there's some availability, but it's even if you come and take your appointment, you're like, oh, and then there are things that you can get started with even during that vacation time. It might end up being a better time than you think. You know, you think,
Yeah.
oh, my summer's busy and we've got family parties and we're going away for a week and all of that. But if you get the information and start even letting it marinate, then you'll be ready to go better than trying to start it with the beginning of the school year and everything else. It's a little hectic.
Let me finish off by announcing our upcoming trips. So at the end of June, we're seeing families in Melbourne, Australia. In July, we're seeing families at our European Center in Pisa, Italy. That's where all of our Europeans and families in the Middle East go. In August, we're seeing families in New Zealand. In September, we're seeing families in Serbia and Croatia, and also in Miami, Florida. And by the way, spaces are very limited in Miami. So if you're interested in coming there, please reach out to Colleen as soon as possible. And in October, we're going back to our Italian Institute in Italy. In November, we go to India. We have a trip planned to New Delhi and Bangalore, India. So, of course, we see families throughout the year at our center headquarters here in Philadelphia in the United States. All right. So if you're interested in any,
we see
and
families
online
as well.
and remote, for families who cannot travel, the remote option is really great. All right, everyone. So I look forward to seeing you back here next week, same time, same place. And great to have you all. Thanks so much, Colleen.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.